Guys, I just took Romeo Doubs at 908 in a startup in the Dynasty Trades HQ Listener League. Did I make a mistake? Let's talk these rookie hype train players tonight. Scott, go ahead. Let's talk Doubs.
Yeah, so he's one that I would have not drafted at all in rookie drafts because he violates I don't take day 3 receivers, and I don't draft receivers outside of the top 2 rounds of drafts generally. There were a couple exceptions, but he was not one of them. So I've had zero exposure to Doubs. But I also can acknowledge that he's in the situation that he has the best quarterback in history in terms of elevating his receivers. And he's done enough to say there's going to at least warrant some opportunity this year. Now, is that going to be prime opportunity to be fantasy relevant, even in like a start 12, start 13? I think he's going to have a window. Is he going to fire in that window? I don't know, but I've been buying in on the Doubs train simply because I think it's a one-way bet. He can be carried by his offense. He can be carried by his quarterback if he has a baseline level of talent that we might have just missed on. We miss on receivers sometimes that are round 3 and round 4 picks because we just classify them as they're outside of that range we're looking for. You know, they're not first or second rounders. So they're outliers historically, but we do miss on them sometimes. I mean, we've seen like guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown and Gabe Davis come from the 4th round. Guys like Hunter Renfrow come from the 5th round. Terry McLaurin come from the 3rd round. Like there's a lot of receivers that you can say were outliers, and I typically don't buy on them until they're 2 years in because I want to see it first, but I'm okay speculating. I went out and bought Romeo Doubs on all the teams I had Aaron Rodgers. So I think I'm up to like 4 shares at this point. But I'm in. I'm willing to take the risk at the current price because I also can acknowledge if he hits, we're looking at a guy you can definitely cash out for the same price. And if not, I gave up a 2nd round pick. So yeah, I'm in on buying Doubs, but not super aggressively.
Shane, you were raising your hand. Let's hop in there. What you got?
Yeah, just I had a point. So I just went ahead and I did a little article discussing Romeo Doubs the other day. So it's not like I know this stuff off the top of my head. But do you want to know what the hit rate is for wide receivers drafted in the 4th round since 2013?
Very low, under 10%.
6%.
8.10%. Now, if you drafted Romeo Doubs in the 4th round or as a UDFA, and probably where he's going a lot of our rookie drafts back in like March and April, and you just want to ride the wave, I'm all for it. You know what? Fantasy's supposed to be fun, I'm told. I get it. I even drafted George Pickens early. We'll talk about that later in the draft for the fun and the shenanigans. If you're giving up seconds, you're giving up real draft capital, you're giving up real assets. I can't get behind Scott's nefarious ways there. I just can't do it. Now, I will say this, Scott's 100% on. He's with the best quarterback that he could be that could pump up his value. And I'm even fine, like if you drafted Doubs in the 4th or whatever, and you want to hold on to him through the first few weeks, because I think he's going to be a guy that definitely has some insulation to his name. And I don't think he's just going to go right to the bench. I think, Aaron Rodgers is going to use him. I think Aaron Rodgers likes him. He's made that obvious. Eventually, Christian Watson's going to become the alpha in that offense, and Alan Lazard will get his usage. But I'm not paying a second for him. I can't do it. Now, if you hit on that second and it's Amon-Ra St. Brown, you're feeling pretty good about yourself, right? Except that, what can you trade Amon-Ra St. Brown for? Can you trade him for a 1st right now, Scott?
Maybe a 24 first. You thought you might be able to on the live stream the other night.
24 first, yeah, but not 23. The mystical 23 class.
The mystical fairyland.
Well, so here's where the data conflicts, because I appreciate the hit rate data that Shane's talking about, but it also conflicts with the warp data that I've talked about. You're trading away a 2nd round pick. The impact of that 2nd round pick, really what you're trading away when you're buying, let's say you send a random 23 second for Romeo Doubs. The deals I've done have looked more like I send a 23 second for Doubs and a running back. I don't have to pay the 2nd straight up. I'm getting something else in the deal that makes it more than a 3rd, but less than a 2nd. But it's right in that range. So let's just say I'm trading a mid to late 2nd. The warp on the mid to late 2nd is almost neutral. It's almost 0. So what you're giving up here is the opportunity cost to use the 2nd in a different way. And that's where the data conflicts, because essentially Shane's saying it's an 8% hit rate. And I'm looking at the warp data saying once you get down to like the 210, 211, 212, the impact is almost zero on your team. So it's like one of those can't be true if the other one is true. But really, it's not the case. What's really true is that the second round pick is best used not to buy a fourth round receiver. And the second round pick is not best used to go out and draft a player in the second round of your rookie draft either.
Right.
Really what it's better used on is, can I buy 4 weeks of starting running back production during the season where I know that guy's locked in my lineup for 4 straight weeks, even if it's, okay, the starter is down for 3 games and I'm buying the backup for 3 starts. That's really where you want to spend that pick. So that's what I'm giving up by buying a guy like Doubs. But it's interesting because it's like you don't want to buy a receiver like Doubs, but you also don't want to draft the second round pick if it's the 210, 211, 212.
Right,
so what do you do? And I'm really just giving up the chance. I gave up the flexibility in those leagues to buy something better during the season. That's what you're forgiving. It's not really about what you're buying or what you're getting in the future rookie draft for either one.
Right.
So we've got some subscriber trades on the bottom of your screen that are going through for each of the players tonight. But let's talk a couple trade options here. So you're not giving a second, Shane. Scott, are you giving a 23 seconds for Romeo Doubs?
In a vacuum, no. Like I wouldn't go spam that if I wanted to buy some Romeo Doubs shares, but I did pay close to that. So maybe it's a second plus a throw-in player on the teams where I have Rodgers. So I'm getting a little intrinsic value to my own rosters by correlating Rodgers. I'm already in on Rodgers on those teams. I don't have a lot of Rodgers exposures, but where I do, makes sense to have Doubs. This is one of those stacks where it's like we've talked about in the past with the Jets. If you're riding Zach Wilson, you might as well have one of his weapons. Like if you're riding Aaron Rodgers, you might as well attach yourself. And I think you could make the same argument for buying Christian Watson for a second, buying Alan Lazard for a second, buying Romeo Doubs for a second. Shane would probably say, I don't really love buying any of those players, but you can also argue that if you have Aaron Rodgers, it's not a terrible idea to pick your shot on one of those 3.
Why not? Might as well stack.
Might as well.
So,
exactly.
So Doubs or Christian Watson?
I'd probably lean Christian Watson still, but like if it's a coin flip, is it that crazy to say it's a coin flip?
Okay. How about Doubs or Juju?
Oh, Juju.
No, see, that Christian Watson, for me, that's an easy slam dunk over Doubs, too. Just, I'm looking at ceilings, right? I'm just looking at his comps. Like, he was okay in college. He was productive. He had a young breakout age in a non-power conference and that he had to stay all 4 years in. And I know that I'm going to be talking out of both sides of my mouth because then I'm going to be like, but Christian Watson dominated at North Dakota South Central or wherever the hell he went. But I just think the ceiling's higher for Watson, just physically, and I'm going to lean that way, but I'll always miss on wide receivers like that. So that's my blind spot is if you're big and fast, I'm always going to fall for you.
Yeah. Right. So we'll get back into some trades, but real quick, I wanted to say that support for this show, support for Dynasty Trades in 5 is brought to you by Manscaped, who's the best in men's below the waist grooming. Their products are precision engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped Performance Package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping using the code TRADESIN5 at manscaped.com. Again, that's TRADESIN5 at manscaped.com. If my math is correct, that is 12 million balls. Romeo Doubs or Tony Pollard?
Tony Pollard.
Pollard.
Because I could have just taken Pollard instead of Romeo Doubs. Romeo Doubs or Chase Edmonds?
Edmonds.
I guess I'm going to have to go with Edmonds.
All right, guys, let's move over to another hype train guy, this time from a different position, Damien Pierce. Scott, talk to me about Damien Pierce. His market value is a first now, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, I would have laughed at you a couple weeks ago if you said people were slaying 23 first for Damien Pierce until I've seen it in multiple leagues. One league I saw it. I've tried getting the 23 first in that league, and I can't. Somehow a guy gets Damien Pierce he gets a 23 first for Damien Pierce. I have Joe Mixon, a running back like that I've tried to get a 23 first plus, and it's just like crickets. And then all of a sudden it's, Damien Pierce. The guy sends a first and a fourth for Damien Pierce. I'm going, geez. He is, I think, a very good lesson for us going forward in future rookie classes. We can no longer take a round 4 running back, especially, and just say, oh, he's a day 3 pick. He's never going to hit. I think you can squint and see round 4 and round 5 running backs that land in situations like this that have some element of whatever you want to call it, upside, athleticism, pass catching ability. They have to have something, a narrative where you can tell yourself, hey, this is a guy that got okay draft capital, not round 7, where it's like, okay, everyone's going to always bias against them because they were a round 7 pick. So you have Pierce, got good draft capital. He's got the physical profile to say, okay, this guy looks good, like you look at him and you go, man, he's got everything you would want. And then they've attached this narrative. I mean, I'm a Kentucky fan. I've seen Damien Pierce a lot. He was never even a guy in the SEC where you were like, you're even worried that he's on the other team, let alone like, okay, we have to stop the one running back Florida has. You're just like, oh, Kentucky's playing Vanderbilt. They have just as good a running back as Damien Pierce. He was never a guy in 4 years you were like, we got to stop this guy. Yet he gets to the NFL and the narrative is, well, Florida just misused him his whole career. He can be so much more. And maybe he can. I mean, maybe everybody whiffed and it was like, he shouldn't have gone to the 4th round. He should have been if in another offense, maybe he's a 2nd round pick. I think one of the other issues with Damien Pierce is he's now expected to step in this role where, I've seen projections for him over 250 touches, which is blowing away what he did in college. I mean, he was not used to handling the ball a lot in college. He basically was in a committee for 4 years, and now he's going to be expected, or at least the dynasty community is expecting him to take on this workload of, 250 touches, 3 down running back, and we've just elevated him into the range where people are paying first for him. That's going to be a big workload. And given that he's now going to be expected to handle a lot more balls than he ever has in his career, Damien Pierce can probably use the assistance of Manscaped, right, Shane?
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. So, he was so lightly used in college. I'm sure he never had to worry about, using something like Manscaped's crop preserver that'll help your balls smell nice. But he's going to have to worry about that now because he's going to be sweating a lot more. You know what I mean? It's a lot different when you're running the ball or touching the ball 250 times. Your balls are going to be just really, really
pretty bad.
But he can fight that with crop preserver. He just rubs them on those balls before they get all sweaty and stinky before the game. Hopefully after he showers after the game. But if he doesn't want to shower after the game, he just put some more on.
Extra. Some more
just put more crop preserver on there. Try to fight the odor, and that's what he's going to need to do now that he's going to get so many touches. If he wants people to continue to touch his balls, he's definitely going to have to use the crop preserver.
Yeah, and if he's going to put the crop preserver on, he's got like this bush that's in the way. You could always bust out the lawnmower 4.0, right?
Yeah. You do. I mean,
like, does that have to be step 1? Is like you first address the lawn?
So I mean, you can see how he got to this point. He landed in a great spot. I think it's also been accelerated by the fact that the Texans have treated him like the veteran starter. Like they've basically said he's the starter. But maybe that's the new age of the NFL. Like, do the Texans have anything to lose by just saying, here, it's your job? I think where you get confused with Damien Pierce and why I wouldn't pay the 23 first is he can go out and have an Elijah Mitchell year. There's a really good chance another guy with the same draft capital comes in right behind him next year. And then the year after that. And then the year after that. Every year you're going to be worried about the competition. Even if he has a good year, the difference between going from a day 3 pick to a starter in the short term isn't that big. I think we can acknowledge you're going to see guys like Pierce, Tyler Algier, like these guys are going to come up every year where if they land in the right spot, they can start. The mistake is, he had a 1,000-yard season. 3 years from now, he's going to get an extension with the Texans, and he's locked in as a top 24 running back. That's the outlier.
Yeah. Yep.
The likelihood is in 2 years, there's another Damien Pierce that is pushing him out of the way. So that's why if you can sell for the first, I'm still willing to do it because I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities between now and when you make that first to either A, go buy a guy that's just a locked-in running back for 2 more years or more, or B, buy a similar type running back that's still going to be volatile season to season for cheaper than the first. So I'm on the sell side with Pierce, but I think it's a good analogy to where we were kind of blind on him. I mean, there were drafts where I took like Trey McBride over him.
Mm-hmm.
There were drafts where people were taking David Bell or Wan'Dale Robinson or, Alec Pierce or Jalen Tolbert or other running backs over him.
Well, so here's the thing. So I think blind's a bad word for it. What it is a lot of times we get in these drafts and we go, I want the player that's going to be good in the NFL. That's who I want, right? For some reason, it completely slips our mind during these drafts. Like there's going to be someone that spikes in value that, who should I be drafting in the third round? Should I be drafting Damien Pierce or should I be drafting Trey McBride? Because which one of them is going to be able to return trade value? Like I could probably, and this is how we need to think about it going forward. In 4 months' time, I could probably trade this running back that I'm drafting for that tight end that's going to actually be good and another piece, or in this case, a first rounder. Because Damien Pierce hasn't done anything special. He's not done anything other than what we thought he would do, right? When he got there, we went, oh, that's a good landing spot for him because, well, the running backs on the roster are just absolute dog trash. So there's a good chance that he could ascend to the starter role just by being competent. Because, again, he's not actually good. You watched him in college. His production profiles tells you he's not good. His athletic profile tells you he's not good. He could certainly go out there and have 1,100 yard season based on opportunity alone. But like you said, he's not going to be secure. Michael Carter just put up over 1,000 yards in his rookie season. And what did the Jets do? They went, nope. We need to get an actual good running back. So just because he'll put up the stats definitely doesn't mean